Remember that dial-up sound,
Yeah.
that screeching noise just to get online?
Oh, yeah.
Ages ago.
And then trying to actually buy something felt pretty wild.
Absolutely, like the digital frontier.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a really key document from back then. It's Jeff Bezos' 1997 letter to Amazon.com shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just, looking back for fun. It's about getting the DNA, the core thinking of a company that basically changed everything about commerce.
Exactly. This letter, it's like a window into the very start. The vision they had when online was just kicking off.
So our mission here, for you listening, is to unpack this thing, pull up those core ideas that, really set Amazon on its path.
Yeah, it's a shortcut, kind of, to understanding their foundational strategy. And we're looking specifically at the source doc, AMZN Bezos 1997 results.pdf.
Okay, great. Let's jump right in then. One of the first things that really jumps out is Bezos saying, but this is day one for the internet, and if we execute well for Amazon.com. Yeah, that day one thing. It's fascinating because, think about it, by 97, they already had, over 1.5 million customers? Some decent revenue.
Right. Not exactly starting from zero.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But he frames it as just the beginning. This day one idea, it wasn't just a slogan. It showed this commitment to always be innovating, never getting comfortable.
Like being in perpetual beta almost.
Exactly. Never settling, always thinking, what's next?
So for you listening, maybe think about how that day one view, always learning, always adapting, could apply to, whatever you do, even if you feel established.
Yeah.
But was there a risk there, downplaying what they had already achieved? Could that, discourage the team?
That's a fair question. I think it was less about downplaying and more about setting expectations, fostering a culture where improvement was just constant.
That's a subtle difference.
Yeah. And this idea, this day one belief, it directly fed into their main strategy, this absolute obsession with the customer.
Yes. He says it right there. We will continue to focus relentlessly on our customers.
Relentlessly. Not just focus, relentlessly.
And they backed it up, right? The letter gives actual examples from 97.
Oh, yeah. There wasn't just talk.
They weren't just selling books. It was a totally different experience. The selection, for instance.
Huge selection. They use that analogy.
The 6 football fields worth of books.
That's the one. I mean, you just couldn't get that in a physical store back then. Impossible.
And the ease of it all, searching, browsing at home, 2047, stuff we totally take for granted now.
Groundbreaking then. And they kept tweaking it, improving that experience.
It's like adding gift certificates.
Yep. And one-click shopping. Game changer.
Right. Plus more reviews, more content, those recommendations.
All in 97,
Yeah.
all aimed at making it better for the customer. And crucially, they mentioned lowering prices too. Direct value.
The numbers really show it worked. What was it, 838% revenue growth?
Yeah, something crazy like that. And 738% growth in customer accounts.
Wow. But here's the kicker for me. Repeat purchases went from 46% to over 58%.
That's huge.
That tells you people weren't just trying it out. They were sticking around. They liked it. That's a real aha moment, seeing how focusing on the customer just paid off. Big time.
And that loyalty, it wasn't an accident. It came straight from this very deliberate long-term strategy, which you see when they talk about shareholder value.
Right. Bezos talks about creating shareholder value over the long term.
Yes, but the how is key. They weren't focused on the next quarter's results. They were aiming for, market leadership. Years down the line. Decades even.
That's a big shift from how a lot of companies think, especially public ones, focusing on long-term dominance over short-term profit.
Takes guts. Real conviction. They explicitly said they'd pick long-term market leadership over, making Wall Street happy in the short term.
So what did that mean in practice?
It meant investing.
Yeah.
Aggressively. Pouring money into getting more customers, building the brand, building the infrastructure, even if it hurt profits initially.
They knew they needed to grab that market share while the internet was still young.
Exactly. And they were okay with making bold bets, knowing some would fail.
Failure as a learning opportunity.
Pretty much. They saw it as paying tuition, basically. Valuable lessons learned.
I like that line, too, about GAAP accounting versus cash flows.
Oh, yeah. That's telling.
When forced to choose between optimizing the appearance of our GAAP accounting and maximizing the present value of future cash flows, we'll take the cash flows.
So clear. Right. GAAP is, the standard accounting rules.
Right.
They were saying, we care more about the real future health of the business than making the books look perfect right now.
Which is, pretty fundamental. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many businesses today get caught up in those short-term optics? So for you listening, it's worth asking. Are you building for the long haul or just the next report?
Yeah. And this long view shaped how they measured success. It wasn't just profit margins.
What were their key metrics then, according to the letter?
Customer growth, revenue growth, sure,
Hmm.
but also that repeat purchase rate we mentioned and the strength of the Amazon brand itself.
Things that point to market leadership and happy customers.
Exactly. Those were their indicators for long-term value.
And the 97 results seem to back up that focus.
Definitely showed they were on the right track with those metrics.
But okay, a vision is one thing. You need the foundation, the plumbing to make it work. They couldn't just talk about growth.
No, they had to build for it, which leads to the infrastructure investments.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that focus on customers in the long term, it needed real physical support.
And the scale of investment in just 1 year, 97, is pretty staggering when you look at it.
What do they do specifically?
Well, employees went from 158 to 614, nearly quadrupled.
Wow.
Distribution center space went from 50,000 square feet to 285,000. Massive expansion. They added that new facility in Delaware.
Needed space for all those books, right?
And more. Inventory level shot up too. Over 200,000 titles ready to ship. Plus, they had a strong cash position after their IPO to fund all this.
So they were really putting their money where their mouth was, building the capacity to deliver on the promise.
Absolutely. You can't offer huge selection and fast delivery without the warehouses and the systems.
Which brings us to the people running those systems, the employees.
Bezos called hiring and keeping talent the single most important element of Amazon.com's success. High praise.
And that famous line they apparently used in interviews.
The long, hard, or smart one.
Yeah. You can work long, hard, or smart, but at Amazon.com, you can't choose 2 out of 3. Sets a certain tone, doesn't it?
It really does. It signals high expectations, a demanding environment, but also hopefully a rewarding one.
And they use stock options pretty heavily, right? To align people with that long-term vision?
Yes, that was key. Giving employees a stake in the long-term outcome. It creates that sense of ownership, that everyone's pulling in the same direction.
It wasn't just about working hard. It was about finding people who could kind of thrive in that fast-changing, slightly chaotic internet world back then.
Exactly. Entrepreneurial types. Adaptable. That focus on talent, right from the start, you could see how that became, well, a pillar of their growth.
It really drives home that even in tech, it's the people, the team,
Yeah.
that makes the difference, not just algorithms and warehouses.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so wrapping up the letter's content, it looks ahead to 1998. What were they planning next?
Well, no surprises, really. It was about continuing the same strategy. Build the brand, grow the customer base, keep investing in systems, infrastructure.
In expanding, right?
Yep. Adding music was a big one mentioned for 98, and starting to look at international expansion.
So doubling down on what was working.
Pretty much. But they weren't naive about it.
They listed challenges too.
Oh, yeah. They knew it wouldn't be easy. Competition was heating up. Managing that kind of rapid growth is always tricky. Risks with new products, new countries.
And the need for more investment. Always more investment.
Right. It's this mix, really. Super optimistic about the opportunity, but also very clear-eyed about the hurdles involved.
A grounded ambition.
That's a good way to put it. So, if we recap this whole deep dive into the 97 letter, what are the big takeaways?
Well, definitely that day one mindset, never finished, always starting.
Yep. And the absolute relentless focus on the customer. Obsession, really.
Prioritizing the long-term vision, market leadership over any short-term profit blips.
Strategic investment in the tech, the warehouses, and the people. Using stock options to align everyone.
And measuring success based on things like customer growth and loyalty, not just the usual financial stuff.
All pieces of that foundational strategy laid out right there in 1997.
Okay, so here's something for you, the listener, to think about. We've seen these core principles from way back in 97. How do you see them playing out in Amazon today? What's endured?
And maybe what's changed in ways they couldn't have possibly foreseen back then. The scale is just mind-boggling now compared to 97.
And maybe think personally, too. What would a day one mentality look like for you? What if you focus that relentlessly on your own, quote, customers, whoever they are in your world?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. This letter, it's more than just an old document. It's like the blueprint for a revolution in commerce and those core ideas. Still pretty relevant, I think.